Now, there's no better person to bring this together than our moderator for the next session, my colleague at Harvard. Many of you know him from CNN, but more importantly, David Gergen is a champion for service and social innovation. He's on the boards of many civic entrepreneurial organizations. He goes and speaks all over the country to help generate enthusiasm for the cause. So I would like for you to join me in welcoming a true champion of service, David Gergen.
It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like it's a beautiful day.
Hi. Thank you very much for joining us for this conference. I'm privileged to be here. And we're going to cut right to the chase because we have a panel discussion with several people who are extraordinarily interesting, innovative in their own lives. And let me introduce the panel. We'll all take our chairs here, and then we're going to engage in a conversation for about 40 minutes. I wish there were a way to bring you into this, to have you ask questions, give comments. I'm afraid that's not going to be possible, but nonetheless, I think you'll be in for a treat with the panel that's coming. Let me introduce them briefly. You should have more information that's available to you with a more complete biographical backgrounds. The first is going to be, and they'll all come out together. First will be Dr. Robert Ross, who is the president and CEO of the California Endowment, a post he's held for more than a decade. And in that area, he works very vigorously in tackling the health issues here in California, questions of community and of poverty. Megan Smith, who has recently become the Vice President of New Business Development and General Manager of Google.org. I sometimes think of it as the Google Foundation, but in fact it's much bigger than the Google Foundation. It's one of the most interesting, innovative arms of Google, as innovative as the company itself, and trying to tackle not only issues of global warming, but many, many others that pertain to what we're doing here. Sonal Shah. Sonal has recently gone to the White House to join President Obama and the First Lady to become the first director of and this is a new office in the White House. It's the Office of Social Innovation and Civic Participation. That's within the Domestic Policy Council at the White House, and I can tell you that Sonal has become the sort of the point person, in effect, for the entire effort by the administration with regard to service and volunteerism, but also innovation itself. So all of the efforts that come under the new National Service Act, Kennedy Act, as well as they've got a social innovation fund. You'll be hearing much more about Sonal and the White House efforts in the months ahead. And she came here with the First Lady and has stayed. And she previously was at Google, at google.org. And finally, I have just recently met this phenom by the name of Sean Parker. Sean Parker, as you may know, and as you should know, has founded or co-founded 3 companies. The first was Napster, the second was Plaxo, and the third is the obscure, little-known company called Facebook. And he has done all of this by the age of 29. His accomplishments suggest that he's a Barack Obama on steroids. So without further ado, if I may ask the panel to join us on stage and we'll enter our conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Whoa. These chairs, we almost sank out of sight. We all thought there was a trap door. These chairs, it was a surprise for all of us. Let me start with you, Sonal. because I think as we end this conference, it's important for people to come away with an integrated view of where the national administration, where President Obama is going to be taking us over the next few years, where he hopes to lead, because you have a lot of initiatives that he and the First Lady and others have launched now in Washington, and I think everyone is anxious now. How does it fit together under the Office of Social Innovation?
It's a great question, and I think many of you heard already from the First Lady where the concept and the belief that innovations are taking place at the community level, and they're taking place every day in the communities all over where we are, and that we want to give that a voice in office. And we're approaching it in 4 ways. The first is, how do we create a policy environment that allows nonprofits as well as social entrepreneurship to thrive in the country? And what do we need to do to make sure more of it can happen? How do we give it a voice in government? The second is, how do we build the tools and the technologies available to allow people to participate with the government? So it's not just government projecting out, but getting information in. So already we've launched www.whitehouse.gov/open, which allows for more open.
What is it?
www.whitehouse.gov/open/.open, which allows for input in on questions, ideas, what government could do differently, how could we do it, and we're starting to blog on the website asking for ideas, but more tools, more technologies, how do we think about that? Third, building public-private partnerships. How can the government be a catalyst to allowing things to happen? How can foundations work with nonprofits and the government to make things happen? Dr. Ross, we've been talking to him. How do we think about in California, how can foundations work with the government and nonprofits, and how can we show that we can each do our part, but do it better if we work together to make it work? And we want to be a catalyst in that space. And our role as government can be multiple ways. It can be to bring the right groups of people together. It can be to put money on the table, and many times it could be to get out of the way to make sure we do that, or it can be making sure that we use our bully pulpit most effectively. And the last is national service, which is extremely important to the President and First Lady, but to all of us. The signing of the bill was important. This conference is critical, and to move beyond here to say, how do we get civic participation to be an ethos of everything we do in the country, and most importantly, how do we build the capacity in the sector to allow for greater volunteering, more civic participation, and giving growth capital to organizations. And here is why we've invested in the Social Innovation Fund, which is a fund that the First Lady and the President have announced, where we've put in $50 million in this year's budget, which we still need to get through appropriations, but to give growth capital to organizations so they have the capacity to grow. It's easy to fund small organizations and pilots, but how do we allow them to scale?
Okay, let me ask you this so I understand it. AmeriCorps and the expansion of AmeriCorps under the Kennedy bill. How is that? Will your office oversee that and be responsible for that, or does that come under the corporation, and that you and the corporation, that you sort of are the liaison, White House liaison to the corporation?
We are the White House liaison with the corporation. The Corporation for National and Community Service will be overseeing the expansion of AmeriCorps.
Right.
It will be overseeing the Social Innovation Fund.
Right.
It will be overseeing all of our service efforts broadly, and that we will be working with them as a partner, and the White House will provide the space in which we have that discussion.
And you'll also provide a lot of the inspiration.
Yes.
For people to sign up. And are you fairly confident about getting from the expansion of AmeriCorps calls for moving from 75,000 AmeriCorps members a year into 250,000 over time? Are you fairly confident about getting from 75 to 250? How do you, I mean, the worst thing would be after all this effort to get the bill passed, that we fail to get the number of volunteers.
Right. I think we're confident that the volunteers will be there. I think what we need to build is the capacity in the sector to manage and get the volunteers.